Hey, welcome to the Young, Dumb, and In Love podcast, where we talk about building stronger and healthier marriages. I'm Julian.
And I'm Brittany, and we want to thank you for being a part of the conversation.
Hey, if you haven't already, make sure you subscribe and leave us a review so that we can get more connected with you. We're so glad that you guys are back with us. Hey, we've had a lot of fun together. We've been really enjoying our podcast, and we're excited to just see as we continue to move forward and all that we do, all that God does through this podcast. And like we've talked about before, even just our marriage, as we're talking through these situations and we're talking about all these things when it comes to marriage, we've grown closer together and we've been more communicative. And we're like, wow, this is really good. So it's a testament to you that the more you communicate, the better you're going to get along. I really believe that.
Well, it's true.
It is true. But this past week, we had a couple of people actually make requests.
Yeah.
And one of the requests we're going to talk about today and probably next week as well. And so, and this subject is not an easy one to talk about because it is really, really, really deep, and a lot of people deal with it, and we really hope that we can just bring insight to what this subject can do to your life and your marriage. And as we're talking about it, I just want to remind you, we're not counselors, we're not anything like that, but what we are people who have been married for a long time, and we get it and we understand. We've been pastors for 15 plus years, and we walk through these things with multiple people in their lives, and I just really believe that life change can happen for you and your spouse as we talk about these things. But yes, today I'm just going to say it straight up, and then we're going to move forward. And I know it's really uncomfortable for you to say the words and how to make it happen.
Well, I think too, like if you're not listening to this, like, you know, I like to preface too, because we have little kids, like if you have kids around or maybe teenagers and you don't want them to hear, this would be a good time to maybe hit pause
and say goodbye
and put in your headphones, or decide to listen to it when they're at school. Yeah. So that's I want to preface it with that, just in case.
So hit pause if you need to.
Hit pause if you need to.
And
okay, you made your choice.
All right, you made your choice. It's up to you now.
Yep.
Okay, so today we're going to be talking about porn and what it does to you in your mind, in your relationship, and just you as a person as a whole, and what the effects can have on you. And we actually have a ton of statistics. We've done a lot of research on this. This isn't just our opinion. This is like research that we've looked up, brought it to the attention. We want to talk through these things, and then we're going to talk about just from our point of view of what we've experienced as pastors in walking through people in their lives. So you don't have to do these in order to, like, for sure. So because I put together the notes, so like they make sense in my brain, so I can see Julian as I've just put the notes here. He's all, there's 4 pages of notes. So I'll start with the notes. Yeah, please. Because I feel like I might be able to unpack them a little bit better. Please do.
So we prefaced it already once, but also like for us, we always want to bring attention to things in a way where we're not trying to bring shame or condemnation. We totally and completely believe that there's, we want this to be a safe space where you can experience grace. But if you are in a place where you're hurting, we want to also help and try to, be a place of encouragement and light. So I pulled this from a lot of different places. We will, Julian will, I don't know how, but he'll give you the resources like in the comments or something. But one place I started, Covenant Eyes, which we'll talk about a little bit. 68% of divorce cases involve one party meeting a new lover over the internet. 58% involved one party having an obsessive interest in pornographic websites. 56%. That's more than 50%, obviously. That's a lot, you know, and 70% of wives of sex addicts could be diagnosed with PTSD.
Wow.
Some of these are staggering, I think, like staggering statistics. 47% of families in the United States reported that pornography is a problem in their home. And it increases the marital infidelity by 300%.
Wow.
I know. I think sometimes when you think of percentages and they're like in the hundreds, you're like, how does it go beyond that? Yeah. 300%. These are some really serious numbers.
Well, and even just that number alone right there, it makes you understand, okay, no wonder divorce rate is very high. Like that's a huge part of why couples don't stay together.
Yep. And, and we try, I kept my research very we just want statistics. We all know what it is, whatever that may look like, but these are facts that we're finding, and, whether or not you think it's right or wrong, these are statistics on what happens, and one thing too, because of my struggles with mental health, I've studied a lot about the brain. I've read different books about your brain and how you over time, the wiring in your brain can literally change. And it talked about, one of these was, let's see if I can find it. Is it this one? Here's the really scary part. The more porn a person looks at, the more severe the damage to their brain becomes and the more difficult it is to break free. So there was this, it talked about how really when you're exposed to, watching over and over, your brain can literally change. You're changing how your brain works. And so, those are just a few things to kind of start the conversation. Yeah, no, that's huge. And so earlier you said 47% of families in the United States reported that it's a problem in their home. And so that's just who's reporting that it's a problem. And that's only just those who know it's a problem, right? So almost 50% of families. Yeah. And that could mean, family, whether it's husband, wife, maybe it's, kids. And that's really a scary and sad thing to even think about or talk about. You know, and another one I found to be really interesting was actually by Cosmopolitan magazine, which is a very, not in any way a Christian magazine. But they surveyed 68 top sex therapists and in the UK, and of them, 86% felt that porn had hurt their relationships and 90% had seen an increase in relationship troubles due to the usage of porn. Most sex therapists also said that porn increases men's expectations of sex with their partners, while has negative effects on women's confidence. These effects can lead to performance anxiety and dissatisfaction in both men and women. So, 90% had seen an increase in relationship troubles due to this. These numbers are staggering. We're not talking a small percent of people. It's affecting a large percentage of people. Yeah, so true. So true. 90%. See an increase of troubles. Thinking about that and being a pastor for so many years, I've sat with guys, and obviously I won't go into detail or names or anything like that, but no, we don't. But I've sat with guys who this is a real struggle, and this is something that for some reason it completely takes control of their mind, and they almost do it without even realizing they're doing it. And then when it's over, they're like, what just happened? They come out of a state of mind that they don't even realize they're in, right? And I think that has to do with a lot of how your brain changes, because definitely. The more you do it, the more you get into it, the more that you don't even realize that it's happening. And that's what I've seen personally from guys. Any habit or anything that you get addicted to, it starts a little bit and you think, oh, it's not a big deal. Yes. And then it's just, it just compiles, and I think. Now, here's the thing, it's not even necessarily that because I don't necessarily enjoy talking about things that feel heavy. I think we like to laugh. We like to keep things light. We do. But when people are reaching out and saying, listen, I don't know if our marriage is going to make it. Could you talk about this topic? It's really hard to say no to that, And so we realize, for some people, you might be like, maybe this particular podcast episode is not for me, but for some of you, you're like, this is what my marriage looks like right now. This is something that's going on, Yep. And so I don't know if this will be 1 week or 2 weeks, whatever it looks like, but we have just a few things here that we put down. How does it affect marriage? Yeah. So how does it, one of the spouses, both, whatever that looks like, how does that affect marriage.
Yeah. Well, I mean, your intimacy is obviously sacrificed, like
Yeah.
so you have to look at it like it's a drug, really. Like people who are drug addicts, when they go to the place where they have to have the drug, right?
Yeah.
It's a quick fix for something that's an actual problem.
Yeah.
Now, it might fix their problem, what's going on inside of their body for that moment, but it doesn't fix the problem. And that's the same thing with pornography. Like, and people who are struggling with it, it's a quick fix. It might make you feel good for a moment, but really the bigger problem is so much bigger than it ever could be, and it's going to bring sacrifice to your relationship and your intimacy with each other. And when you have a healthy sex life with your spouse, I'm going to be honest with you, like, the only thing I want to see or touch or be around is her, right? Yeah. Like, that's it. Like, I don't have desire for anything else.
That's God's design.
And that's God's design for
marriage.
Yeah, exactly. It was never meant to bring others into your relationship with each other. Like, you were meant to be with each other, right? Yeah. But when you are inviting that in, you're opening up, and we say this all the time, once you compromise, you've chosen your side, right?
Yep.
We say that because if you open up the door, you're going to open up the door, and the enemy is just going to completely seep into every part of your relationship with your spouse. Yeah. And as you bring this into your personal life, as you bring this into your marriage, I'm telling you, like, the effects are way stronger than you can ever imagine. And it because it seeps in, it pours in, but it's like you don't even realize it's pouring in. It's just pouring in at a steady pace, and all of a sudden your entire relationship is flooded with unhealthy habits. Yeah.
Well, and real relationship is given up and forsaken for an imitation. Like, it's really, it's not the real thing. And I think that's what is sad, is when you are engaging in, this pornography and you're watching, or, whatever that is, you're giving up what real relationship looks like, which is face-to-face conversation, which is give and take, and, which kind of leads into the true purpose and design of sex is abandoned.
Yep.
Because God designed it, and he wants it to be experienced between husband and wife. And what happens is then we take that out completely away, and that is not what it's designed to be. Yeah.
It's designed to be beautiful. Yeah. And you're supposed to be coveted between each other and nobody else, right? Yeah. Yep. And you're right. When you invite that in, you're taking that gift away from your spouse. Yeah. And that gift should only be for them and them alone. Yeah. And here's the thing, like, I can obviously speak from a man's standpoint, but men have, crazy desires, and there's things that going on inside their minds and their hearts, and they don't even know what to do with it. And that's how I see a lot of these guys fall into this trap, because they don't know how to fulfill those, or even just like have a conversation with their wife and say, hey, this is where I'm struggling. Do you think, like, I would way rather have that conversation with my wife and say, hey, I'm struggling. I need more of this. I need this. I would rather be honest with her and tell her where I'm at. And I don't know why, but because I'm struggling, I feel like I'm going to, I have this weird desire to pull this into my life, and I don't want that. And I know it's not right, but for some reason my brain goes there. Yeah. Typically every conversation that I've had with guys is because they're afraid to talk to their wives and have that conversation, and just, the conversation about sex and what it should be, and what their expectations are, and what that looks like,
which we talk about all the time, communication. Because a lot of times if there's a breakdown in communication, and needs aren't being met, that can happen.
That's when you open the door. Yeah.
Right. And it needs to be where whichever spouse is struggling, you need to not blame your partaking in pornography on your spouse not meeting your needs, because you are a grown-up. Say that. And so say that. I think that can be hard too, because the last thing that a husband or wife wants to hear is, well, I'm doing this because you're not doing this for me, and so you have to be so careful with that. So it's like, hey, these are things that I, like, whatever it is. And that's really when you start needing to get help. And
that's where communication is key, though. You have to talk to each other.
Well, and, the hard part too is we've talked about trust, how to gain trust, how to build trust, how to lose trust. And this breaks trust.
It does.
Because a lot of times it's secret.
Yep.
And that was another thing that even I read, that for 70% of women, they admit that they keep it completely secret.
Yeah.
And that's something I read. And I think that that's the hard part, is whenever you have a secret, it just breaks trust.
Yeah. It breaks trust.
It just breaks trust, you know?
So true.
And it's a hard thing to get back. And we've talked about it.
Absolutely.
You know, and another thing is destroying self-esteem.
Yeah. Yeah. For both.
Yes. For both. Absolutely. Yeah. For both, you know, I think it's for both. And it just sets such an unrealistic expectation. Mm-hmm. And I think that what people don't it's not real. That's not real. Mm-hmm. You know, you're partaking in something that's not real. It's not intimacy. It's not, you know, a relationship. It's strictly meant and built for entertainment.
Exactly.
And it's not real. And we talked about this.
Yeah.
And I felt like it was sensitive, but that in a way, it's the easy way out.
Yep. Exactly.
And we talked about that, right?
Yeah.
So you want to unpack that a little bit. We talked about that looking at porn is the easy way out, the quick fix.
Yep.
Doesn't solve the problem, and how that affects relationships.
Yeah.
So when we say it's the easy way out, what do we mean by that?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's the easy way out to fulfill a need, to, you know, make yourself feel better, or I'm trying to think of what else.
Because real intimacy takes work.
Yeah. Because, 100.
Loving your spouse and seeing their needs.
Yes.
Takes work, right? I
mean, and in marriage, as you move forward with each other, you have kids, you have your jobs, you have
work,
responsibilities,
and time.
I know people who have to schedule their time with, they have to schedule intimacy with each other because their life is so busy.
Absolutely.
But I would way rather you schedule it out and plan for it than fall into this trap and you know, get your quick fix that's going to only cause more problems, you know. And so that's where as you're falling into this, I always call it a trap, because it's a trap for guys to get stuck in, girls to get stuck into. Where you, like you said, you get that fix, you get quick fix. It doesn't do anything. It helps you out for maybe a second internally, but really you're destroying yourself from the inside out. You know.
Yeah. Well, because I mean, and obviously our podcast is, you know, we are Bible believing, Jesus following. And so we believe that in having a pure heart and a pure mind and protecting those things, you know, and it's true, when you let those things in over time, it's going to mess with you. Yeah.
You ever seen that illustration where there's water and then they pour something into it and it completely you're black, right? What you're doing is your mind and your heart you are meant to be of pure mind and pure heart, right? That's the way your marriage is supposed to be. And as soon as you take in you know, pornography and you start putting it into your marriage, all you're doing is once you're pouring, it may be small pours and little drips here and there, but eventually that water is going to be completely contaminated and looking black. And that's the great thing about Jesus, though. He can redeem you from that.
Absolutely.
He can take you from that, and we truly believe that. We're not saying once it's black, it's black. You can be redeemed 100% from that. But one drop at a time, you may not see much of a difference. The more you do it, the more you pour, eventually it's going to be completely overwhelmed, and your heart and your mind will be completely changed. And that's then
where people start to feel hopeless, you know, and that's not true, you know. And so, and we realize there might be people that are like, well, why is it a big deal? Or, you know, my husband's fine with me looking at that, or my wife is fine with me looking at that. And I think my challenge would be that really it's the marriage bed is meant to be undefiled.
Yeah.
And when you introduce, you know, pornography or secretly one, you're really bringing in an outside person or an outside thing into your marriage. Mm-hmm. And it talks about too, when you look at another woman or lust after that, you do in your heart, you know, whoever looks at a woman to lust for her has already committed adultery with her in his heart. Yeah. Now that might sound really extreme, and I'm not saying
for sure
if you don't correct and you know, whatever that looks like, but ask for forgiveness and Lord, you know, that's not my heart. And you know that, but when you've continually allowed that to
grow.
like to linger on that thought.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, that's why we have to take our thoughts captive. That's why we have to stop things before they happen, because like your heart just, I don't know.
Yeah. It grabs a hold.
It
It's like a, I know I always, just forgive me. I'm a Marvel guy. I love Marvel. I love Star Wars, but Venom, Venom it's so funny. You probably don't want to understand it, but all the guys out there, it's like Venom. Okay.
Hey, and girls too. We have lots of friends.
A little piece of venom, if it lands on your skin, eventually it's going to take over, and you're going to be completely taken over by it, and it's going to take over your life, and you're going to turn into a totally different person. Yeah. And that's the same thing here. Like you allow a little bit. Yep. Eventually, it's going to be all of it, and it's going to be 100%.
This is, everyone always goes into it thinking it's harmless. It's harmless.
For sure.
It's not hurting anyone. I'm by myself.
Yeah.
But I think as you look at these statistics, you see that it is not harmless. This is not a harmless thing. And I always think too, and this is something as I was just kind of like writing down notes and, making sure that we did this, like our due diligence of not just talking out of turn. The enemy loves to make a counterfeit, right? He loves to take what God made beautiful and good, and he wants to make it ugly and bad, but
make it look good.
Yes. And I just feel like that is where you have this whole industry that is obviously very rampant. I mean,
it is rampant.
I mean, I read makes $16.9 billion a year in the U.S. In the U.S. That's just in the United States. But it's like the enemy wants to make it's a counterfeit. It's not real. It's not real. And it causes selfishness. Yep. And that's the thing, is like we think it's harmless. It's not going to affect me. But what happens is whatever spouse is partaking in it, you then unintentionally begin to maybe desire something or only want to meet your own needs. Yeah. And in marriage, we're meant to come together and meet the needs of each one another, and it's so true. Yeah. It's so true. And the thing is too, is if you're like, this is something that you're struggling with, like I would just remind you one more time, there's hope. You can totally come out from it. And I've seen many people get redeemed and have great marriages and completely change everything around. But it took effort, and I've talked about this before, but even like when we were youth pastoring, I had a group of guys that I had a little small group with, just How
a bunch
to Train Your Dragon.
Yeah, and I called it. And we called it. I called it How to Train Your Dragon, and the reason is because some of the boys were struggling with this, and I wanted to help them. I'm like, how can I help them today, right now? And so I was teaching simple little things of how to run from this in your life. And so I call it How to Train Your Dragon, because that's when the movie came out. So might as well just go with it. So long. You're aging yourself. Yeah. It's a long time ago. But it's true though, because what we did is we put steps right in front of us of what to do when the desire comes, right? Steps of what to do. And not only just steps, but like I'm not saying steps to think about. I'm talking like physical steps to do when this happens, and so like guardrails. Yeah, exactly. Guardrails for you to be able to come out of that. And there's lots of things that you can do, but I'm telling you, like the number one thing you can do is literally be physical with yourself against pornography. Now, I know that sounded weird at first, but that's exactly what I'm talking about. So if the desire is coming and you pull up your phone or your computer, the best thing for you to do is to literally stand up, leave your whatever it is right there, and walk away. Go for a walk. Like going for a walk is so freeing in your mind and helps you just open up your brain to, reality, right? Yeah. Open up your mind to reality, because what happens is when you open the door to allowing that into your life in that moment, I'm telling you, something shuts off and you turn into a different person. And so I would rather you don't even turn yourself off. Just put it down, walk away, and put guardrails up by physically walking away from the opportunity of what's about to happen. Well, I mean, in the Word, it talks about
fleeing.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, from
Resist
that temptation,
the devil
and he
and
will
flee.
flee from
Yeah.
you. You know, resist the devil and he will flee from you.
Yep.
And I know that, and we have also, and we probably will cover this in the next one, we have some practical ways, you know, for people
sure.
to get help, and we're going to do our best to like, hey, here's some resources. But you really do have to flee from it.
Yep.
You know, and I mean, I remember, and for me, it was, I was using I have some obsessive compulsive tendencies, and I would search things on the internet, like things like I was afraid of, to see how many people had died from the thing that I was afraid of.
It was a deep, dark tunnel.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And this was a long time ago. It was like some postpartum from our first one, and she's almost 11. So it was a while ago.
Yeah.
And it got to the point where Julian had to, it's not funny.
You
like my story?
This,
yeah, it's a long time ago.
I kind of had to parent you in that moment.
Yeah. So I had my internet turned off on my phone. And I mean, I was 24.
And I took her phone and shut it off.
He took the Safari and shut it off. And I wasn't very good with my phone. I would have never known to like, download another browser. And I think even like my ability to like download other things was turned off. He had a password for it.
Yeah.
So I couldn't use it. Now that might seem like, oh, that's controlling, but I wanted him to do it because I needed to like stop.
Yeah.
And I felt like the only way I could stop myself from doing this thing that I was so tempted to do, and then I would just go down this big black hole and I'd be so afraid, and I would live in so much fear. And so, you know, that may be something that you need to do. Like, and there are, and we'll give you all like these other resources. There's a few that we know of. I'm sure there's a ton out there of things that will, like, you could turn off your browsers on your phone or on your computer.
You
could have passwords for them. You could have certain level of like basically like parent controls on it, where you can only go to this level of website, or where when you go on to that website, it sends an email to an accountability partner that says, hey, you know, Julian visited this website. You need to touch base with him because obviously he's struggling.
Yeah.
And so it's like, yeah, sometimes we think that is so silly. But the only thing that kept me from not looking up these scary things that were just torturing me was to have someone shut it off so that I couldn't do it.
Yep, exactly.
You know, and I know this may sound extreme, but it's like sometimes, like, you know, the word says, like, if that is causing you to sin, you got to cut it off. And now, do I think that that means like literally cut off like your hand? No. But what I think it's saying is that sometimes like we have to just cut things off.
Yeah,
like we cannot even allow ourselves a tiny bit of it.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like, okay, it may seem really extreme at first.
Yep.
And it is really extreme at first. I mean, when we've walked with people in different seasons, I mean, it's shutting down all their social media accounts. And I'm not saying we made them do that. They had chosen, I'm ready to make a change.
Yeah.
And so these were like maybe recommendations, or their spouse wanted them to do, shut down all their social media accounts, you know, have a open phone policy, no searching after this time or that time, you know, whatever it is, a password setup that sends to a pastor, an accountability partner, whatever that looks like. That doesn't always mean that it's going to be sent to your spouse. That may not be the best person for it to go to, you know. A lot of times it's like, if it's your husband is struggling with it, a man, like, you know, at your church or whatever that is. You know, a good friend of theirs that you can be honest with, like, hey, he's not supposed to be doing this or whatever. But anyway, a lot of times you just have to cut it off.
Yeah, that's so true.
It sounds a little violent.
No, it's 100% real. It's the most truest thing that you could do. But that's that's one of the things that, like, we can give you all the steps, give you all the different things that you can get signed up on and whatever. We could do all that, and we're going to. But right now in this moment, if it's a struggle, like, that's the first thing you can do by yourself right now, is by cutting it off, by, you know, shutting down your browser. You can make the choice today. Like, that doesn't really take a lot of effort. It really doesn't. The hardest part is having the conversation with somebody, you know, having that accountability in your life. And that's a really hard part for a lot of people, because they don't want to be shamed. But just listen, it's so much better to just get it out there and be honest than to let it fester and grow inside of you.
Well, you may not even realize that this, even though you may be finding some, you might be finding some satisfaction from what you're doing. it's a weight. You don't even notice it, but it is weighing on you. 1,000%. And when you do decide, I'm not going to do this anymore, and you talk to someone, my guess is you're going to feel a huge weight has lifted. There's going to be work. It's going to be hard, just like anything.
For sure.
It's going to be hard,
yeah.
but you're going to feel like a weight lifted.
Yeah. Freedom.
And I think just, we're going to have to wrap up this
for sure.
episode, and then we'll do the next episode on, okay, this is me. I'm struggling. What do I do now? One thing I want, before we wrap it up today is for you to take a moment. If this is you and you're struggling, I want you to take a moment and I want you to think about your husband or your wife,
mm-hmm.
your kids,
yeah.
your future.
Yep.
And I want you to start thinking big picture.
Yeah.
Going to these sites or whatever it is. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't have to tell you what it is.
Mm-hmm.
I want you to stop. That's a small picture.
Yeah.
I want you to think of the big picture and the marriage that you can have and what you can do for your kids. When you decide to almost take off like this cloak of something that's been weighing on you.
That's good.
And going, I'm not going to do this anymore.
Yeah.
And so really start to think big picture
mm-hmm.
and how that's going to make your husband or wife feel when they know that you want to get free from this and that you care and love them and your family so much.
Yeah.
It's going to be work. It's going to be hard. You're going to have tough conversations, and we are not unaware of that, but we just want to be an encouragement and that you can do it.
Yep.
100%. You really can do anything that you decide you want to do.
Yep. You can. And you said it right on the mark. Just go, just start.
Yep.
Have
Start
the tough
today.
Conversation.
Yep.
It might be hard, but at the end of the day, it's 100% worth it. And we promise you that. But we're going to continue this. We're going to have another episode, and we're going to talk about just actual steps and maybe some more statistics to kind of walk you through of what that looks like. But we just really want to encourage you. You can do this. We believe in you. And we believe that there is freedom waiting for you on the other side if this is something that you're dealing with. Or if you know somebody who's dealing with, hey, dude, take a second, send this to them and say, hey, I know you struggle with this. Check this out. I want you to get some help. There's things we can do today, right now, that'll help you move forward when it comes to this. But thank you guys so much for submitting questions and suggestions of what we can talk about, and we hope that we can continue to do that for you. As we are talking through this, just like I said, take steps today to make a change. And as we're waiting for the next episode to come out, just know that there's light on the other side, and that you can make a difference in your life. And all you have to do is just start. You got to start somewhere. If you sit around and do nothing will ever happen, right? But if you start and you get up and you move and you physically move yourself away from those things, that's a start. That's somewhere you can get started with everything that you're doing. But thank you so much. Make sure you subscribe. We want to make sure that you are part of this community, whether you're on Instagram, TikTok, or even just the podcast online. So just make sure you subscribe. We would love to hear more questions from you. If you haven't already write a review. We would love to see what you have to say, how we can improve, or how much you love it, whatever it is. So thank you so much, and we'll catch you on the next one.